And on PM Express tonight, a conversation about activities leading up to the reopening of schools. You heard the president announce that school will be in full swing on the 18th of January. A number of activities have been happening in the lead up to that. So TEWU strike, there's a new curriculum for JHS and SHS, and also a policy by the GES to regulate NGO CSOs in the education sector. So Workers Union TEWU began a nationwide strike today demanding better conditions of service. The union says for close to 2 years, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has not been able to finalize issues on its condition of service while members continue to work under very difficult conditions. The union says it will only call off its strike when its demands are met. And you recall in December 2020, the union issued a statement warning of a strike action if government did not act in good faith. So they actually described government's action at that time that it was in bad faith. Now, let's look at a new curriculum that will be guiding us as we reopen schools. Kindergarten, primary school, JHS and SHS shall all be described as basic schools. JHS 1, 2, 3, SHS 1 shall now be referred to as BS 7, 8, 9, and 10, respectively. And that is that makes SHS 1 now become BS 10. All students in JHS 1, SHS 1 shall run a common core program called CCP, which comprises of 9 subjects, namely maths, languages, science, RME, and they are the standalone subjects. There's also the physical and health education. Those are not examinable. They're career technology, social studies, computing, and creative arts and design. A new examination called the National Standard Assessment Test shall be conducted at Primary 2, 4, 6, and JHS 2. BECE shall be replaced by a placement exams at JHS 3 to enroll students into SHS 1. Students in SHS 1 shall continue to run the Common Core program for 1 year, meaning students into SHS 1 shall not select science, business, or arts programs. And at the end of SHS 1, students shall write a Common Core exams into SHS 2. Now, at SHS 2, something will happen. Students will now have to select either a career-related program, which include vocational and technical programs, or a high school diploma program, such as science, business, or the arts. This means elective subjects shall start in SHS 2. So this is where people identify their strengths and they decide to skew towards a certain line. WASI will be replaced by a university entrance exams at SHS 3. Students, after successful completion of SHS 3, will be rewarded a diploma certificate instead of WASI certificate. So it means that in this new curriculum, there's not going to be BECE, there's not going to be WASI. It will be replaced by other things. Now, there's a GES policy on education NGOs. It seeks to regulate NGOs in education, and they say it will help in carrying out any project. So from February, they will ban an NGO in the education sector from carrying out any project unless it has paid an NGO or CSO application fee to GES, and then GES will approve its activities and project proposals before securing funding. And it then will have to disclose its finances to GES, and its activities will jointly be implemented with the GES. This has been met with fierce resistance by some NGOs, CSOs in education. They say it will impede their freedom to criticize government. All of these we'll be talking about on PM Express, a number of issues, plus a meeting with TEWU, the Employment Ministry, and the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. We'll be bringing you all of that after this break. And tonight, my guest, El Ankara, is Head of Public Affairs, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. Kofi Asari is Executive Director of Africa Education Watch. John Mensah Annan is Acting Executive Secretary, National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, NACA. I'm grateful that you all joined me. But Mark Kranche, who is General Secretary of the Teachers and Education Workers Union, TEWU, unfortunately cannot join us due to the way the meeting ended. So I have a copy of a statement issued a while ago by TEWU after the meeting, and I will share with you. The statement says, following the declaration of a strike action by members of the Teachers and Educational Workers Union of the TUC Ghana of Public Universities, the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations, represented by Honorable Ignatius Bafo Ewa, convened an emergency meeting on Wednesday, January 13, 2021, to delve into the outstanding issues. And the engagement was cordial and productive. Key issues of the engagement have been resolved in principle pending further consultations with relevant stakeholders on both sides. The parties agreed that TEWU will meet its local executives from the various public universities on Thursday, January 14, 2021, to share the details of the outcome of the meeting with them and revert to government on decisions reached by Friday, January 15, 2021. Both sides exhibited considerable goodwill in the course of the deliberation. It is signed by Dr. Edward Kwapon, Chief Executive, and Mr. Mark Denshra Kranche. Thankfully, El Ankara, who is Head of Public Affairs at the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, joins me via Zoom. Mr. Ankara, I'm grateful for your time. Your last meeting was in October, and many are wondering what took the Commission this long to resolve the situation. But tell me, what was the outcome of today's meeting?
Okay, as you rightly read in the statement, it was cordial and productive. The different representatives of government were there: Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations, Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, and then TEWU on the other side with their able representatives were there. It was very productive, and like you read, both parties are going to do some further consultations and then revert on Friday, and then we see the way forward.
What kind of consultation are you asking TEWU to have with its members?
Well, the issues that came up around the table, that is the core principles of the issue on the table. You know, there were a huge range of issues that we had been discussing and that we have been negotiating over a period of time. And when it comes to negotiations, you don't complete everything at a seat, and you adjourn, return, adjourn, go and do some further work and return. So that was what we were going through before the call of the strike. But in any case, the important thing is what happened today. It was very productive. The key outstanding issues were agreed upon in principle, were resolved and agreed upon in principle. So the parties, the government side will be doing further consultations, and then TEWU on their part will be doing further consultations with their local executives from around the country, and then we will see the way forward from then.
Now, TEWU says that this time it is not backing down on its strike until its demands are met. How early are you looking forward to resolving this issue and actually meeting their demands so they can go back to work?
Well, it will be preemptive and presumptuous on my part to say here how soon we are going to complete this. The important thing is both parties are willing to resolve it and resolve it as soon as possible. I mean, the meeting was chaired by Honorable Ignatius Bafo Ewa. He was very particular about how soon we resolve this. And as much as TEWU was very, very concerned about how early it is resolved. So it is hoped that both parties will do their consultations as soon as possible. And then it's when we get around the table that we'll examine about when the strike will be ended. Again, it will be dependent on what the outcome of tomorrow's meeting, that is between TEWU and their local executives, the outcome of that meeting will determine the way forward.
How soon are you expecting TEWU to get back to you with this consultation? And are there specific timelines for the specific demands they are making?
Well, there are immediate specific timelines for what work each party is going to do. TEWU will be meeting their local executives tomorrow. I'm hoping that by this time tomorrow, we would have gotten feedback from TEWU as to the outcome of their meeting with their local executives. And then when we reconvene on Friday afterwards, and then we will see what goes on after that.
So we can safely say by close of tomorrow, you may have reached a certain consensus and have this issue resolved?
Hopefully so. Again, it's all in the hands of TEWU, and we are looking forward to some positive results. As you read earlier on, the meeting was cordial. You know, the representatives of TEWU led mostly by Mr. Kranchi and Mr. Lumo, very, very experienced negotiators. And then, of course, you know, the Minister of Employment, Honorable Bafwe, also very, very experienced. So those cordialities were established, and it is clear that the outcome of TEWU's meeting with the local executives is supposed to be positive, in that they will convey the spirit of today's meeting to the members, and we look forward to positive results by this time tomorrow.
I'm grateful for your time. Ella Nkra is Head of Public Affairs at the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and we look forward, like as he has said, to by close of tomorrow, business tomorrow, having some resolution to the demands that TEWU is making, so they can go back to work as school reopens on Monday. But there's a serious issue, a very important one, on the table as we prepare to go to school on Monday. Now, there's a new curriculum that is going to be introduced to JHS 1 up to the senior high school. And thankfully, I have the Acting Executive Secretary of the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. I have Kofi Asare in the studio, but I'd like to go straight to Mr. John Mensah and also on that. So what's the objective of this new curriculum? In fact, is there a problem with the existing one?
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Annan, I can hear you
Good
loud
evening.
and clear.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Actually, the position is Acting Director General,
okay,
and not Executive Secretary.
Acting Director
now,
General.
When we look at our curriculum, currently we could say, even there have been a World Bank report, I think 2015, which said most Ghanaian youth aged 18 to 24 are unemployed and unemployable. The last word is what kills everybody. Though not that they are just but unemployable.
Okay.
That tells us that our system is not working well for us. And if the system is supposed to work, then we need to revamp our educational system. So that calls for a series of reviews. And this review started way back in 2017. There was a stakeholder engagement. A ministerial advisory committee was put in place, headed by Professor Kwame Osei-Kwarteng. And within 3 months, they were able to come out with recommendations. They submitted that to Cabinet in October 2017, and Cabinet approved most of their recommendations. Mainly, they said over the years, Ghana have been reviewing curriculum, but we don't have a policy or framework that guides us. So this time around, we have National Pre-Tertiary Curriculum Framework that is supposed to guide any review, what content we need to develop, and what should be the aims and objectives and the focus for whatever we are supposed to do. They also recommended that the objective-based curriculum is out of state, out of use. So we need to go where the whole globe is going, that the standard-based curriculum. So we came out with the standard-based curriculum, which we are supposed to have a phase level review. So we did the first one as the kindergarten to primary 6, and we completed it. We did our trial testing. There were a series of stakeholder engagements. We did some in Tamale, some in Kumasi, some in Accra. We met NGOs in the education. We met our education partners, teacher unions, parents, agencies of other agencies of the ministry, traditional leaders, even workers as low as to the Kaya Yi and so forth. We met all of them to seek their views concerning what type of education that they will also need for Mother Ghana. Based on this, we came out with the first phase review, KG and primary school, which the implementation started in September 2019. Now we came to the second phase, which is, and the high school, we have the junior high and then the senior high. We did not just move into the review, but we had to get technical advisory committee. We have meetings, and out of that, a common core program was born, which came out with 9 learning areas. And the issue that was tabled was that the common core program should be a 4-year program. So it transcends JHS 1 to SHS 1, which we have christened Basic 7 to Basic 10. Okay. And that is exactly what we have completed, and it is supposed to start rolling this particular academic year.
Kofi, have you seen the new curriculum, or what's your reading of it?
Unlike the primary school curriculum, where some consultations were done, CSO submitted input, we did, submitted input to NACA for consideration. Because of COVID, the junior high school approach was a bit different. We couldn't have the consultation we had for the primary one, for the basic, for the KG and primary one, similar to that, what was, for the junior high school one. Because of the COVID, it was approved in cabinet sometime September. So much of the work was done when we were in the early part of the COVID era, and so very little engagement with CSOs on that. But our understanding is that yes, the common core curriculum, the common core aspect of the curriculum is actually the pillar. At the end of going through kindergarten, primary, you must complete the full course of basic education with the common core competencies. The meaning is that because in Ghana, per our constitution, every child of school-going age has the right to basic education, and it's free. It means that the common core virtually is the minimum competency level that every Ghanaian must attain to be able to be relevant to the labor market, as he mentioned, so that you will not complete school or you will not drop out of school and be unemployable. So that is our understanding of what the common core means within the right to education.
But you have concerns with the structure and the content of the curriculum.
I think the content of the curriculum is fantastic in the sense that it is consistent with the demands of today's world. Bearing in mind that the last time curriculum was reviewed was about some 15 years back, and so it is consistent with the harbingers of the new, of this new era, and that it has what it takes to cook the Ghanaian human capital into what is actually required for consumption
for the job market.
by all levels of the labor market. And so content-wise, fantastic. The challenges we have are, one, this is a standard-based curriculum. The meaning is that you must attain certain standards at every point of the curriculum ladder, if you like. And so when you get to primary 2, there's an exam. There's a standard test. When you get to primary 4, there's a test. Primary 6, there's a test. These tests are meant to test, to assess your attainment levels of the respective standards, so that we know whether you have to continue or you have to remain until you catch up. Unfortunately, the curriculum was rolled out last year. So primary schools did just about a term. Assuming one was in primary 6, you did just a term, and then COVID set in.
Yeah.
And then the whole system was disrupted. Now, that first term was actually the inception term. That was when teachers had been trained fresh. And so it was that process of struggling to adapt to the curriculum.
Yeah.
Then suddenly COVID struck. There were no textbooks. Teachers complained. We all heard about it.
Yeah.
And authority said that you don't need textbooks to teach, but there were no textbooks, and teachers complained. Now, the challenge is that after 10 months of closure of schools, most teachers have actually forgotten because they've not been engaging the curriculum because it was new when the COVID came.
Then.
Textbooks still not ready. Now, we are going to school and asking that those who are in primary 6, who went through just a term of the new curriculum, should migrate to junior high school 1 on the basis of which standards attainment. Because it's a standard-based curriculum. It's not objective one, as he rightly said. So the foundational skills, the standards that they should have acquired at the end of primary 6, which should have allowed for a smooth migration from primary 6, which is more or less BS 6, to BS 7, junior high school 1, has not been attained.
Okay.
So on what basis are we moving them?
Okay.
Secondly, when we move them, we've been told that the first 8 weeks of this new academic year will be used for catch-up. That is why you'll be doing catch-up learning for the foundation that has to be built before you migrate them onto the common core. The common core starts from junior high school 1. That is 8 weeks to teach what should have been taught in virtually 2 terms.
Okay.
Obviously, it's going to be compressed. And no standard test will also be undertaken before they migrate. And so we find that it is a bit challenging because most students will not have attained the minimum standards
To be able to migrate
requisite for them to start the common core.
Yeah.
That is the first challenge.
Okay.
The second challenge is this, which is even more worrying.
Okay.
You know, I started by saying that the common core competencies from our perspective is that every Ghanaian must attain those standards to be relevant to the labor market at any point in time. If you drop out of secondary school, you are still relevant, whether higher secondary school or lower secondary school. Now, the challenge is this. You have to achieve the comprehensive common core competencies after going through common core 1, 2, 3, which is basic school 7, BS 7, BS 8, BS 7, BS 8, BS 9, and BS 10. Okay, good. Now, BS 7, 8, and 9 are junior high school 1, junior high school 2, junior high school 3. So if you complete junior high school 3, you would not have attained the desired competency level per the common core curriculum. You should complete senior high school 1, which is BS 10, for you to have that competency. That's standard.
Okay.
Now, our system presently is designed such that after junior high school 3, only 90% of students are able to transit to senior high school 1, even after the introduction of free senior high school. It means that more than 40,000 students, close to 10% of students will not have the opportunity of attaining the minimum competencies, that's the common core competencies.
Because they are not able to go to SHS.
Exactly, because BS 10 is now in senior high school. So what happens to those? Okay. It defeats the very essence of introducing a common core in our curriculum system, which every Ghanaian is entitled to attain when they enter kindergarten 1.
Okay. I think, thankfully, we have Mr. Anand still on Zoom. How do you respond to some of these concerns that have been raised by those who are in the system, and how do you intend to handle these challenges when they come?
Okay, thank you so much. It's just interesting. The discussion is so interesting. My friend mentioned the minimum standards. Actually, for each of the levels or each of the classes, there is a content standard. A level that the child is supposed, that what the child is supposed to acquire and be able to demonstrate. So when we look at the primary 6 pupils, they did not even do the standard base for primary 5, but they were able to be in primary 6. The main focus now is to look at the gaps. What is the entry knowledge, the entry skill, the entry experience, and the entry attitude that the primary 6 people who are migrating to JHS 1 or B7 are having. So this is what the teacher is supposed to use the differentiated learning approach to identify. When you identify all these gaps, then you look at the standard that have been set for basic 7. So you know where the child is coming from and where the child is supposed to exit, the minimum competencies that is supposed to acquire and demonstrate. So when you look at this and you identify the gaps, then you know what type of interventional activities you have to employ to ensure that the child misses nothing.
How much of time is available for the teachers to do this? And in the event that different students have different problems, how do they deal with these challenges before they move on to the JHS1 plan?
That's why I mentioned the differentiated approach, because we are using this time around inclusive learning, because definitely all the faces don't look the same way. The skills or the way of learning are not the same. The children that sit in the class before us have been categorized into 4 different learners. They have 4 different learning styles. They are the audio learners, the kinesthetic learner, the visual learner, and the tactile learner. So each learner with the approach or the type of intervention that you have to institutionalize. And you know, at the JHS level 2 or basic 7 to basic 9, which is the JHS, we do subject teaching. So that is where every teacher is supposed to identify the deficiencies in the learner that he or she is supposed to teach. And we don't teach them together like something like all size fit all, one size fit all. Definitely, you have to use different approaches because all the children are different. They come from different backgrounds, they have different learning styles.
So how do you do the assessments with this kind of different
and we know our
teaching?
Teachers, the teachers have already been taken through the differentiated learning that was sponsored by Gallup. That was just last year, November, from October to November.
How about the assessment?
But for the assessment, we are supposed to roll out the National Pre-Tertiary Learning Assessment Framework, that's NPLAF, which is having or hosting the INSAT, National Standard Assessment Test, which we are supposed to roll out, which will start this year. And this year, the target is the primary 4. That one is just one assessment within the system, but the teachers are also supposed to roll out assessments for learning and assessment as learning. So with our monitoring and evaluation and other issues, we identify some of these shortcomings. And we have also put in place professional learning communities and continuous professional development activities in the schools. That every week there's 1 hour dedicated for the teachers to meet, and then the issues that they find very difficult, they are supposed to address them, led by a curriculum lead who will be appointed in the school. So he or she will have to identify all the challenges that the teachers are facing, and then they come together where there is the need to call for a reinforcement or call for an expert from the district office, the regional office, or any college of education or from national. That thing is done. And then they use that particular process in addressing some of these shortcomings. So it is not like an event. It's a whole process.
Clarify this for me. I need you to clarify this for me. In the event that a child in basic 6 who are going to JHS1 now, who do not, after the teacher accessing them and realizing that they don't meet the standard, will they be brought back to primary 6, or how would the teacher handle the situation?
The teacher is supposed to identify the entry knowledge, entry skill, entry attitude, and entry experience. So there is nothing like that person has not met a certain standard. Standard was set, and the person is supposed to achieve the minimum. Whatever standard the child comes to the class with is what he or she has. Now you look at the exiting point. When the child is supposed to exit, what standard is he supposed to demonstrate? So you now look at the gap, and you have 1 full year to fill in the gap. And to fill in the gap is where you come out with the strategies based on the learning style of the individual. You don't teach all of them at the same time. You identify the challenge of the individual child, and you come out with the intervention strategy that will be suitable for that particular child.
Okay.
Because as we know, some, like I said earlier on, some are audio or oral learners. For them, when you talk, they have heard it. Some are visual learners, some are kinesthetic, some are tactile learners. So when you use the approach that is so convenient to the child, you will be surprised that the learning situation will be revolutionized.
Okay, so if I get you,
with the colleagues.
Ms. Annan, if I get you, you say the teacher has 1 whole year to identify whether the people meet the standard to be in HS1, and still the 1 year, in between the 1 year is when they are supposed to teach the JHS1 students and assess them at the end of the year, right?
No, I did not say that.
Okay, so
already the documentation has come out that the first semester, they are going to use the first 8 weeks to do what I'm saying. Yeah, so by the end of the 8th week, they have identified every child, the deficiencies that they have, their strengths and weaknesses, so that when you are institutionalizing your interventional activities, you know what level to meet the child.
Okay.
Until they complete or they exit your class in Form 1.
Okay, let me bring in Kofi Asare in here.
Mr. Annan, the issue is that you have a proposal to teach within 8 weeks what should have been taught over a 1.5 term period, which is, about 8 months.
Okay.
You want to do it in 8 weeks. And you are also doing it within a COVID system where teachers are not going to teach for more than 5 hours or so because of the wearing of the nose mask and all that. And so you're not going to have the full day, 7:30 to 2 o'clock to teach. Most schools in urban areas are going to run shifts because of the physical distancing requirements and the limitations of our infrastructure. And so it beats my mind how we are going to do what we should have done in
8 months.
In about 8 months, in 8 weeks. It is impossible. We want to propose that if it is very, very necessary for us to ensure that standards are not compromised in the name of just pushing through these reforms, we should have given a 1 year period for the curriculum in primary 6, for instance, to have been fully exhausted, by which time we would have known how to do the migration to BS 7. But we are rushing to do that.
Okay.
The second recommendation, Mr. Annan, is that, as I mentioned earlier, and as you alluded to, because the World Bank and among others identified key gaps in our employability, you mentioned that this curriculum was designed based on that, so that every Ghanaian would have that minimum competency to be employable, should they drop out of junior high or senior high school. Which means that attaining the common core curriculum's objects is basic, it's foundational. Every Ghanaian must achieve that. Now here's the case where, as I mentioned earlier, 90% of Ghanaians are likely to move from junior high school 3 to senior high school 1. 10% will not. That is what the data tells us. Now, wouldn't it be more expedient to expand junior high school to 4 years so that the common core curriculum, which is from BS 7 to BS 10, would have been completed in junior high school, where every Ghanaian has no restriction of access, at least to the extent possible, can attend or can access primary and junior high school, so that that truncation period between junior high school 3 and senior high school 1, which deprives 10% of students an opportunity to go to senior high school, wouldn't have deprived them an opportunity to complete the common core at BS10, which is senior high school 1.
Ms. Annan, you have answers to that. The plan, what's the plan for the people who may drop out, who may not end up going to the SHS to complete their common core plan? And he also made the point about those going to JHS 1 from primary 6 who have done only 1 semester and you have to compress the time to make sure that they really meet the standards. All right, so we'll try and get back, Mr. Annan. I'll take a break. When I return, there's also the concern about teachers who have not received training yet on the implementation of this new curriculum. When we return from that break, we'll be getting into that and also look at the fact that we do not have textbooks. Last year, there was a new curriculum for basic schools. We still haven't seen the textbooks yet. There's a new curriculum being introduced for JHS 1 and SHS 1. No textbooks yet. How are we going to be teaching the kids without textbooks and even teachers who have not received training? All of that will get Mr. Annan to give us answers. To stay with me on PM Express. Welcome back to PM Express. We've been talking about some issues, concerns raised before school reopens in January. One of them is the new curriculum we'll be seeing for JHS 1 to SHS, which will be running from Monday, January 18, when school reopens. And thankfully, Mr. Annan is still on Zoom with us. Mr. Annan, you are trying to explain to me how you intend to handle the fact that there are some people who may not be able to get to the SHS level, and so they may not get that required standard needed for everyone. And also the fact that those from SHS 6, Basic 6, going to JHS 1 may have some gaps that needs to be filled. And the fact that they need to compress all of that and do it at the JHS level.
Thank you so much. The issue of education is not like what I can describe like parking blocks. That because you are parking blocks and you need to park 100, you need to count all of them. But when it comes to education, there is the issue of leapfrogging. That sometimes you have to leapfrog. And when you consider the minimum standard that one needs to achieve, it doesn't mean you must go through all the topics within the class level before you achieve it. There are series of competencies which are not topics to be treated, but they are issues that are acquired through the day-to-day activities in class. So these are the issues that the teacher is supposed to identify and then try to achieve within that 8 weeks to identify the strengths and weaknesses, and then use the other resources available to ensure that the child is able to meet the level that is supposed to get before exit to basic 8. My line went off at a certain point in time, so I could not follow all that Mr. Asari was trying to come out with. But one thing I could remember is talking about the core competencies of the Common Core program, which he had to end in basic 10, so that is it. And then he was also making mention of the transition challenges that we have, students from JHS 3 moving to SHS 1. That is a challenge that government is trying to solve. One thing we must also bear in mind, when we say somebody has completed school and was supposed to exit, at what age? By JHS, the average age is 15. By SHS 1, the average age is 16. And according to International Labour Organization, the law is that you cannot engage anybody or employ somebody who is below 18 years. That is why you cannot say someone at the age of 16 has completed school. That's why the government was trying to redefine education, that the minimum level of education to be given to the child is to complete senior high school. So all efforts must be made to ensure that the various infrastructure that is needed is provided so that children who move from JHS 3 can transit easily to SHS.
Okay,
that nobody is left behind. And that's the SDG goal that we are all fighting for.
The other concern has been the fact that teachers have not yet received training on how to implement this new curriculum. Textbooks are not yet available for new program yet. Yet you want this to roll out on Monday when school reopens. How do you intend to implement this?
Thank you so much. The Common Core program is not rolling out on Monday. That after 8 weeks, and by the 8 weeks period, teachers will be trained.
So on Monday, when the students, JHS 1 students start schooling, what curriculum will they be using?
That is the period we say what they have lost in primary 6 is the intervention that is going to be given to them, so that you bring them to the level that they can now start the Common Core program from the 9th week.
We still don't have textbooks for Ms. Anna, we don't have textbooks for the basic schools. I mean, the one that we introduced, the new curriculum we introduced for the basic school last year, which was cut short by COVID, we still don't have textbooks for that. So even if they're going to fill in that time, which textbooks are they going to be using for that?
Thank you so much. The world has moved on. And what I will describe, the situation that I will describe here is that we Ghanaian teachers always like to teach to the test. That is why we always mention textbook. Every information you need to teach have been provided. Where the gap is now is what the child will also read to at least reinforce whatever the teacher has taught. And I've said that in the morning when we were discussing this, I made mention of the textbook policy. And that as at now, for the primary school, over 950 books have been assessed and have been approved. When we consider even primary 6, all the subjects that are there, every textbook is available. And we are hoping that probably some of these books will get to the classroom to help the child also reinforce whatever he or she has learned. So when we talk about the junior high school, the Common Core is coming with a learner resource pack. And the learner resource pack is a stopgap measure for the textbook that the child is supposed to use. And there's a teacher resource pack, which is also more or less like a teacher's guide for the teacher to use with the curriculum.
When do you intend to distribute these textbooks you talk about, and when do you intend to train the teachers for the Common Core program?
Yeah, that arrangement is Ghana Education Service. As for NACA, we are finished with our mandate, and the next mandate is Ghana Education. They have 2 mandates to clear, and they did the first one, which was the regional-based training for all the municipal, metro, and district trainers. That is completed. What is left now is the JHS teachers at the district level who will be trained. And they will find some means within the 8 weeks that the children are supposed to be reviewing and then finding solutions to some of the gaps that they have had from the primary stage because of the COVID activity. And that is exactly what GES will be doing. And we hope they will be on top of it.
Kofi, so basically there are no textbooks yet, but they're hoping to distribute textbooks for the basic schools, the one that was introduced the first time, and then hopefully train teachers. But all of that has not been done yet. We're going to school on Monday. What do you expect to see on Monday when school reopens?
Well, teachers will have to improvise. The textbooks are not even at the tendering stage yet. So we are nowhere near getting textbooks, even for the ones that was introduced over a year ago. That's the primary and KG curriculum. So basically, teachers are going to have to improvise as usual. And one wonders how they can improvise given the short time that we need to do learning catch up, and also within the the limited, instructional time, because you're not doing a whole day teaching due to COVID. You are running double tracks. I mean, shift system in schools that have bigger class sizes, especially in urban areas. And so it's a very challenging period. Ideally, we should have postponed the rollout of the CCP, the Common Core Curriculum, until next year, when we would have, built a standard foundation with 1 year, 1 full year of comprehensive introduction of the primary school curriculum. But I don't know where we are rushing to. In other jurisdictions, in the US, for instance, when new curricula are being rolled out, what happens is that they roll it out from kindergarten 1, kindergarten 2, so that the whole cohort starts it and completes it. You don't start it in between, or, but it looks as if we are, as you said, we are relying too much on the leapfrogging. Yes, leapfrogging, yes, but it is a system that is beset with extreme inequalities and inequities. How can you leapfrog a student who is in Tintimshe, who has no access to the full complement of a trained teacher? It only makes sense in Accra, but beyond Accra and a couple of areas, it's challenging to be using leapfrogging when we are dealing with basic issues related, including access to trained teachers in classrooms in rural schools.
We'll look forward to see how this whole thing pans out, especially on Monday when school reopens. And we're looking forward to seeing the teachers, like Kofi says, would have to improvise for now until they get some training, and also with the textbooks, so we can make a full complement of the education, the standards we're seeking. But let me bring in this quick one. The fact that there's going to be regulation from February of the education NGOs, CSOs, so that I personally spoke with Professor Amankwa, who told me that there's not going to be any witch hunting with this kind of regulation, but it's only to make sure that the education NGOs are making the right impact, making positive impact. And he gave me an example that there are some NGOs who really are not achieving zero. They're not really impacting on, or they're not really doing any serious work. So this is actually to regulate them. I mean, what are your concerns?
Professor
What's difficult about
Professor Bankwa's mandate as head of GES is to ensure that there are about 300,000 teachers we pay every month deliver upon their mandate and produce quality education in class. Education whose outcomes are consistent with those that private schools are providing. Because the investment we make in our education is totally more than how much private schools do. And Professor Mankwa's GES admits in successive education sector performance reports that their biggest challenge is how to monitor and supervise teaching and learning. The difference between why private schools and public schools have a dichotomy in their learning outcomes, with public schools doing better than private schools, even though private schools doing better than public schools, even though private schools normally use untrained teachers, is because of monitoring and supervision. And Professor Mankwa admits this in all the GES reports. The reason why Gallup has been introduced. Now, if your main challenge is how to monitor and supervise your own teachers to achieve quality learning outcomes, why do you want to include the challenge of monitoring CSOs
but
to your task?
But why don't you also want to be regulated?
We are regulated. We are regulated by the Department of Social Welfare under the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, and also by the Registrar General. Yesterday, we filed our returns to the Registrar General. Our auditor report is with the Registrar General. We are regulated. We have to renew our certification. We go through that process every year. And so the problem statement of the GES in respect of that particular proposed policy is non-existent. It has no foundation on the ground.
So your problem is that it will be overburdened? Why are you crying more than the bereaved? They are not complaining.
No. Our aim is to support GES to deliver quality teaching and learning and help them remove obstacles that come their way in pursuing that aim. Okay. One of the obstacles is their limited capacity to undertake quality supervision and monitoring of their own staff. So why we stretch them and add other ones that will further derail them from meeting their own objectives, which they have not met. Apart from that, you see, I have been working in district for about 20 years. There is nothing like any NGO working in the district without the knowledge of the social welfare office or the GES. There's nothing like that.
Okay.
No one in GES can mention one NGO in the district that is doing work there that no one is aware of. It is not possible. Even when you are applying for proposals, you are expected to add a letter of support from the assembly and the education office if it's in education. No one will give you any money to go and implement an activity in Pong Katamaso district without a letter from the district or the district assembly or the DU. It doesn't have, it is only people who don't understand how the system works.
Okay, briefly, so what are you petitioning?
We have told the GES that, number one, for that policy suggesting that all NGOs must become members of GNEC, which is a private voluntary organization, before they can recognize them, is inconsistent with our Article 21 rights in the Constitution, which guarantees us to free association. It's like saying multimedia, if multimedia is not part of GIBA, NCA will not give you your license. It doesn't work that way at all. We shouldn't even discuss it. And I'm surprised that donors are supporting the GES in this endeavor because it is actually a constriction of our rights, a restriction of our rights, and a constriction of the civil society space instead of rather expanding the space. So
it's not like you want it to be amended, but you just don't want it to happen.
No, we are saying to the GES that there are several ways, effective ways that you can do this. The fact that you don't have information on the activity of CSOs is because you have deficits in your data gathering capacity in the district education office. So do these three things. One, train your district education officers on how to collect data. Two, let them give orientation to the NGOs in their district on government education plans and priority areas. And then three, at the end of every year, let them all meet and then share their activities, their success stories, their experiences with the GES, and then plan for the next year. This has been done in many districts that we have worked in, including Chifu, Imanuwa, the district, Elembele. It is an annual thing that happens in many districts where they will call us CSOs to come and share their activities, discuss what you did for the year, your plan for the new year, how can we support, how can we work together. It is done. So the GES can do it if they strengthen their own capacity. It is never an issue of regulating CSOs. It's an issue of strengthening the GES's own capacity to collect data.
I'm grateful that you joined me. Kofi Asare is Executive Director of Ghana Africa Education Watch, and John Mensah Annan is also the Executive Director, Acting Director General of NACA. Earlier, we're joined by El Ankar, who is a Public Affairs Head of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs.